So today we have in the studio Mr. Quoc, the chairman of Hoa, Ho Chi Minh City Association of Wood and Handicraft. And we have Mr. Klaus Goss, the expert from SIPO in Swiss Import Promotion Program, and Mr. Jonas Grauder, Deputy Director of Swiss Cooperation Office in Vietnam. And Mr. Khanh and Klaus, Jonas, thank you for coming.
Thank you for inviting us. Yeah.
So we're going to talk about the first topic, that why we need a national brand for the wood sector in Vietnam. So we just talk about that when we want to have economic development, want to have one sector move up to the higher level in value chain, what's the implications of the national brand in that? And Jonas?
Okay, thank you very much. Well, from SECO points of view, I think national branding of the timber sector is actually key, because you then define what is your unique selling point of the sector. What does the sector stand for? Is it like you want to be at the high end? Do you want to have the mass production? So you actually define a little bit direction you want to go. And if you look at the value chain, I think the design stage and the branding stage are actually those stages where you add the most value to the product. So it's very key. So you need to have a good strategy in place, a good branding. And ultimately, we are of the belief that if you help with the branding, you also, at the end, support the SMEs, the production line, actually to increase their quality and to get more competitive. And this is all about, I mean, like, look at the current situation of the Vietnamese economy. I think you did very well in attracting foreign direct investments. However, the spillover effects to the local suppliers, to the local SMEs, they remain actually quite weak. So this is how to help them to move up the value chain and also to get better integrated into the global value chains at the end. And I think with the good branding, you can actually help that. And that said, like from a macro economic point of view, then you really contribute to economic development.
Why we talk about the brand, especially a national brand, is it crucial right now?
First of all, I want to take this opportunity to thank you, the Swiss government, to helping our members and Hoa in the wood industry for the last 4 years to improving the technical in the sector. So to answer your question, I think that most of the manufacture in the wood industry of Vietnam today is mostly in the OEM, that means original equipment manufacturer. So the value, then the margin for the products that we export is not high. So to have a brand name for the country and so the brand name for individual domestic industry will help a lot to add the value for the products that they export.
And Mr. Khanh, I think that you and your company have already have very good brand, IA. But talking about national brand, how each company benefit from a national brand?
Yes, I think that I agree with Mr. Klaus regarding about we need the umbrella for the brand of the country, because actually will help a lot on the vision of the older company in the industry in Vietnam. Because, for example, that today if people talk about Switzerland, we think about this as a country who produce high quality of products from watch to chocolate, or anything is high quality, high end. So what is the definition of our brand name in the wood sector is so very important. We are roughly thinking that we may build the industries based on flexibility, creativity, use a sustainable timber, raw material from our country, and also to have multi-brand to supporting all the small company to create their own brands in the vision of the whole country brand name. So this is what our goal is. I think for Vietnam, the wood industry also a new industry. They are really developed only for 18 years to 20 years. So most of the founder of the industry is a work with with habit to do like with OEM. And the perceptions, they never thinking about to create the brand. It's easy to get the contract from OEM, then to create the brand, then to think to need to invest for the brand. But I think for that, it's a time for to add the value for the products, as I said, and also the competitive and the worst. We need to have a brand. And then the brand for each company and also the brand for the country. From my point of view as association, we still thinking that for Vietnam is a good example, the good vision is the helping many of SME company to build a brand. They just and not just focus on one or two. So with the umbrella, with the association, and also some department of government to help them.
And Klaus, you have experience in helping Indonesia and country in Balkan to develop the national brand for the industry. What is the most difficult? What's the most challenge you face when working in national brand?
Brand always requires a lot of discipline from the participants. That requires a very strong role of the business associations to help the messages originally transported in the brand really to be set up also as guidelines from the role model of few companies towards the big number of SMEs in the country. And that's work to do. This is nothing that goes automatically. That needs the imposer of the business associations to be worked out with.
That's very important that we need a mechanism to avoid the situation that one company try to develop the brand, but three other companies try to destroy it.
I think that in previous discussion we talked about like umbrella, the brand must be under one umbrella. I think it's a very good idea, and I think that umbrella that we mentioned here is mainly like the road association. So the road association with the supporting from international help to first of all to do some of the training, educate for all the members how's important you need to have a brand. And after that, to have a mechanism, as you say, to make the definition of the brand. And the most important, as Klaus mentioned, they need the discipline, the determination, and passion as well. Because to build a brand is a long-term vision. It's not just a short-term. And you cannot change your vision many times. So to help it, we need to have an umbrella association to create, make definition very clear and to train it.
Coming from Switzerland, I think that Switzerland have very good national brand on product and on service, but it has before you were born, I believe that. So in your generation, you just take it as granted, or you have to do something to develop it or to maintain it.
Of course, I think it's a constant learning. I think the biggest mistake that you can make as a company, but also as a nation as such, is if you stand still. I think it's a continuous learning process, and you have to compete. Actually, you are, as a company, I think you always have to look at it from a competition way, right? So, and you want to compete with the other nations, with other companies, and you want to win the race, right? And for that, you need to, like, always, as a first priority, look at your quality. And then, of course, it's also a little bit a combination of a conducive business enabling environment together with what the SMEs can do. The government actually is, in my point of view, is responsible for creating a business enabling environment. So make the life easier for the SMEs to grow. And on the other hand, it's the SMEs who actually should be in the driving seat. They should also develop kind of branding strategy, branding of the products of the sector. And this is only possible, and this I think very much the case in Switzerland, if you have very good elements set out, like a good education system, you need to have skilled people, you need to invest in research to have innovation, very critical. I think also in my generation now it's very important to have a good education and to bring in the innovation to the companies. So only then you can move forward and be competitive.
Yeah. you mentioned something very important, that's education. We'll come back later. But Klaus, I believe that the brand made in Germany is a bit younger than brand made in Switzerland. Yeah. So can you share some story that how that brand name is developed?
Yes, of course.
Not in the wood sector, but in some other sector.
Some other sectors, yeah. Interesting enough, we discussed this earlier. Was made in Germany was a negative brand. It was for the British to not buy German products, to identify them from other products in the industry, and this is developed into one of the strongest national brands, I would say, today, that people have the mentioning of made in Germany as a immediate identification about some values of precision, of mechanization, of good working industries, and it was a lot of effort put in there to develop it from the negative image to the positive one, and of course to maintain it at a certain level. And we can say that this is carried by many different horses. The one thing is that we have these famous names that everybody around the world would know from whatever industries they are. But interesting enough, for example, in the woodworking sector, also in Europe, the majority of the companies is SMEs, and they giving the labor to the people. They are developing the product. They are doing the service at homes with the customers. So this is something very important, that a brand is settled on many different shoulders, and this is of course also one big factor of strengthening it.
Yes, and Mr. Khanh, again, I'm not talking about your company's brand. It's only excellent, only very good. But you also are chairman of association, and I believe that is not now. It's the first time we talk about the national brand. So when you are chairman of association and talking about the national brand, talking about umbrella, what is the most obstacle, or can you share some story about that?
I think that first of all, maybe I'm going to share what is a positive way that we can build a national brand for the furniture industry. I think thanks for our very good effort to the whole industry for the last 20 years, Vietnam become a very recognized, country for export furniture. But we dominate most of the sector from high end to low end. For example, if you go to US, most of the brands are very famous, like Allen, Restoration Hardware, and even Medium Pottery Barn. Everything have a Vietnamese brand inside that manufacture in Vietnam. So I think Vietnam, when we talk about Vietnam today, people thinking it is a country of peace. It is open up to the world, and everybody say the people is nice. We are welcome. So means that we have the service is in our gene. So and the industry for the high end in the future, the service is very important. Like Switzerland, part of their product to selling with the brand is a service. I think so. Yeah, so I think that is one of the main factor that we already have to start with. So the obstacle for me, I think it's just like most of the members in the association or the industry still don't realize how to build the brand. I think all of the members totally agree that with the global competitive, we need to have our brand. We need to add value on the product to have brand. But how to do it? How we start with? They don't know. So the role of the association is to helping them, to educate them, to define it, and of course a lot of supporting the long way to be with. I don't think that is an obstacle. I want to use more challenge. And I think that the challenge, and we are the country who always have a challenge, and we love challenge to improve.